how do you think the president has handled the sequester, the $85 billion in automatic spending cuts?
Well, no one can think that that's been a success for the president. He didn't think the sequester would happen. It is happening, but to date, what we've seen is the president out campaigning to the American people, doing rallies around the country, flying around the country, and berating Republicans and blaming and pointing. Now, what does that do? That causes the Republicans to retrench and to put up a wall and to fight back. It's a very natural human emotion. The president has the opportunity to lead the nation and to bring Republicans and Democrats together. It's a job he's got to do, and it's a job only the president can do.
Among Republicans, among the media, among Democrats often, the answer for what we need to do next, the answer for how to fix the city, get beyond the sequester, get Congress working again is very simple. The president should step up and lead.
We need real presidential leadership here. The president needs to stand up to the plate.
It's time for him to lead this effort as the commander-in-chief of this country.
A president's got to lead.
It is time for leadership. It is time for him to engage and come down 1 mile, deal with the Senate if he really wants to lead.
Here's a tip. If you are reckless enough to create a crisis for the nation, you had better know how to fix it.
All the while pretending he's somehow powerless to stop it.
Sadly, this is the, quote, leadership in the age of Obama.
Mr. President, why won't you lead? In fact, President Obama got this exact question, actually a couple of times, at his press conference today. Here's his explanation.
Mr. President, to your question, what could you do? First of all, couldn't you just have them down here and refuse to let them leave the room until you have a deal?
You know, I mean, Jessica, I am not a dictator. I'm the president. So ultimately, if Mitch McConnell or John Boehner say we need to go to catch a plane, I can't have Secret Service block the doorway, right? So
I'm sorry.
I understand, and I know that this has been some of the conventional wisdom that's been floating around Washington, that somehow, even though most people agree that I'm being reasonable, that most people agree I'm presenting a fair deal, the fact that they don't take it means that I should somehow, do a Jedi mind meld with these folks and convince them to do what's right. Well, they're elected. We have a constitutional system of government. The Speaker of the House and the Leader of the Senate and all those folks have responsibilities. What I can do is I can make the best possible case for why we need to do the right thing. I can speak to the American people about the consequences of the decisions that Congress is making or the lack of decision making by Congress.
It is not pro-Obama or anti-Obama to say this cult of presidential leadership, this idea that whatever is happening in Washington is happening because either the president is leading or whatever is not happening because the president just isn't leading quite hard enough. It is not too much to say that this is the single most toxic and pervasive myth about how Washington works. The American political system was designed by men who were terrified of having a monarch again. And so they consciously and they purposefully designed it to make the president weak. In the Constitution, Section 1 is not about the president and how he needs to lead. It is about Congress. And that's not an accident. Congress is where the primary power in our political system lies. It is Congress that can write and pass a bill to end the sequester. The president cannot. What does the president get to do? He gets to sign or veto that bill that Congress passes. And what happens if he vetoes it? Congress can overturn his veto. And yet in this town, we insist that the president has some special causal power over events in Washington and in Congress. Like he can use his special President Ray gun or his secret President I-beams to dissolve opposition to his agenda. Like he could and should be some kind of monarch. And the only thing standing between him and that, the only thing between us and a truly powerful president who gets his agenda done is a training montage. And the reason, generally, is the reason you hear the idea is that he could just use that bully pulpit. that the president has some kind of special persuasive power that can either move Congress directly or that can move the American people to get them to move Congress in turn. Obama called it a Jedi mind meld, and while we're docking him 3 nerd points for that, the mind meld is from Star Trek, Mr. President. The fact that half of Washington thinks he actually does have a Jedi mind trick, well, I'm docking them 10 political science points for that, or at least 10 looking around at what's going on for years now points for that. We actually have the evidence on this. Political scientist after political scientist has studied it, and here is the truth. The bully pulpit mostly doesn't work. There are just about no examples of a president using speeches to build public support for something the American people disagreed with. Think about George W. Bush on Social Security privatization, or Bill Clinton on health care reform, or Ronald Reagan on Social Security cuts. The answer can't be that Bush, Reagan, and Clinton were just bad at the bully pulpit. But even if that wasn't true, even if it wasn't the case that the bully pulpit is generally ineffective when tried, it doesn't matter. The core question dividing Washington, on that core question, the president has used the bully pulpit, and the American people do agree with him. In a recent USA Today Pew poll, a huge majority of Americans, 76%, 76, feel a combination of both spending cuts and tax increases should be a part of the next step in tackling the federal budget deficit. Essentially, again, agreeing with the president. 76%. But Republicans in Congress don't care, because the people who voted for them, or at least the people threatening to primary them, they don't want tax increases, and they really don't want them to compromise with the socialist Marxist president guy. Frances Lee, a political scientist at the University of Maryland, has looked at this historically, and she found that when any president takes a position on something, he makes it more likely that the other party will vote against it, even if it's a totally nonpartisan issue, something like going to Mars. Whatever he says to them is less persuasive because he is saying it, because he is a president of the other party. We saw this happen just a couple years ago. Remember when President Obama adopted the individual mandate, the thing that Senate Republicans had introduced in the 1990s in response to Bill Clinton's health care bill, and that Mitt Romney had passed as governor of Massachusetts in 2005? And remember then when Republicans decided the individual mandate just wasn't just bad, but was literally an unconstitutional policy. That's what happens when the president takes a strong stand. So what else is left? One really unusual option was implied or joked about by National Journal editor Ron Fournier today on Twitter. He wrote, "POTUS can handle bin Laden, but not Boehner. So Obama should dispatch the Navy SEALs to shoot John Boehner? That seems like a bad idea." And it's not, of course, what Fournier meant, but it does get at the core issue here, this idea that all things from wanted terrorists to other members of the federal government are ultimately under the president's control if he just tries hard enough at it. Brendan Nyhan, a political scientist, calls this the Green Lantern theory of the American presidency, that just as a Green Lantern's ring allows him to do anything if he has enough willpower, so too can the president do anything if he just shows enough willpower. But the president is not a member of the Green Lantern Corps, at least not yet. John Boehner is Speaker of the House, and he is a grown man with his own ideas and his own constituency. The point of the Constitution and of our electoral system is to make it such that the president cannot tell him what to do. That is not to say the president doesn't have a role in these debates, but at the moment he's playing that role. He said he's willing to sign some compromise proposal between the two parties. He's gone on the road to tell the American people what he thinks they need to hear. We don't need more leadership from the White House. We need more leadership from the House. We need House Republicans willing to compromise with Senate Democrats. And if that's not happening, if they are paralyzing Congress because he won't be moved off of an extreme position on the budget, then we need a media willing to hold them accountable for it. If we don't have that, then there's nothing the president can do but fold in the face of unreasonable demands. And to do that would not be showing leadership either.